Journey of Lars Ahlfors Fields Medal, written by Frank Wong. Lars Ahlfors was born in Finland in 1907. In 1936, he received, along with Jesse Douglas, one of the first two Fields Medals. At the time, he was a professor at the University of Helsinki and a visiting professor. From 1935 to 1938 at Harvard University. In the 1997 film Good Will Hunting, the psychology professor portrayed by Robin Williams explained to his community college students that the Fields Medal is like the Nobel Prize for math, except they only give it out once every 4 years. Furthermore, the recipient must be under 40 years of age. The Fields Medal is widely considered to be the most prestigious mathematics award. Elevated by the recognition in the mathematical world, the Ahlfors couple returned to Finland from Harvard and had their first child, Cynthia, in 1938. Their happiness did not last long. Nazi Germany invaded Poland on September 1, 1939, and Europe descended into chaos. The second daughter, Vanessa, was born a month after the Second World War broke out. In 1944, Ahlfors was in a desperate situation to leave Finland. His account of the escape was quoted in his obituary, written by Stephen Krantz, published in Notices of the American Mathematical Society, based on Donald Albers's interview of Ahlfors, published in the College Mathematics Journal, CMJ.
I can give one very definite benefit of winning a Fields Medal. When I was able to leave Finland to go to Sweden, I was not allowed to take more than 10 crowns with me, and I wanted to take a train to where my wife was waiting for me. So what did I do? I smuggled out my Fields Medal, and I pawned it in the pawn shop, and got enough money. I had no other way at all. And I'm sure that it's the only Fields Medal that has been in a pawn shop.
Krantz's story of the Fields Medal in a pawn shop was included in his amusing book Mathematical Apocrypha, Stories and Anecdotes of Mathematicians and the Mathematical. I remember first reading it after I bought the book during the Mathematical Association of America Math Fest, held in Hartford, Connecticut, in the summer of 2013. I chuckled occasionally on stories in the book on my Amtrak ride back to New York, which caused my fellow passengers to raise their eyebrows. But I also remember that a year earlier, on April 25, 2012, Ahlfors' second daughter, now Vanessa Gruen, and a longtime resident of Long Island City, New York, where LaGuardia Community College is located, came to our campus to give a math colloquium reminiscing about her father. She mentioned that she and her sister had donated the Fields Medal to the University of Helsinki. As I was unable to find the full story of the first Fields Medal using internet search engines or artificial intelligence tools at the time of this writing, I reached out to Vanessa, and she kindly granted an interview. Vanessa described that when she was a newborn, less than 2 months old, and was still in the hospital, Russia commenced the Winter War against Finland. Women and children were sent out of the country. Her mother brought Cynthia and her to Sweden. She was so little, and on the boat she was mistaken by other passengers as Cynthia's doll. The Ahlfors family was forced to separate because Lars, as a young man, was expected to stay to defend Finland. When the fighting subdued, the mother and daughters returned to Helsinki. In the preface of Ahlfors' collected papers, which is a short autobiography, he wrote the following.
Soon after the end of the Winter War, my family was able to return home and resume a seemingly normal life. Politics in Finland took an unfortunate turn, however, and when Hitler attacked the Soviet Union in 1941, Finland was his ally. When the Russians were finally able to repulse the attack, they could also intensify the war in Finland with foreseeable results. The Finnish-Russian War ended with a separate armistice in September 1944, whereupon Finland was able to expulse the German troops stationed there. The harsh terms of the armistice left Finland in a very difficult position.
In the CMJ interview, Ahlfors said, "Being a Finnish citizen, I was never in the military service, but I was still considered eligible for special service." Vanessa explained that her father was not taken as a soldier because he had a heart defect. Instead, he was sent to a room in a bomb shelter with some other mathematicians, and they were supposed to code military messages. But the phone never rang, and so the four mathematicians sat and played bridge the whole time. Vanessa said there were 2 Finnish-Russian wars and asked me to look it up. I did that. The first was the above-mentioned Winter War, from November 30th, 1939 to March 13th, 1940. The second one, also called the Continuation War, began on June 25th in 1941 and ended on September 19th, 1944. In 1942, Ahlfors sent his 2 daughters to Sweden to stay with his wife Erna's sister in Kungsbacka. In 1944, Erna and their young son Christopher, born in 1943, also left for Kungsbacka. With an offer from the University of Zurich and worsening situation in Finland, Ahlfors finally decided to emigrate permanently. After receiving clearance from the government, he left his homeland, with his Fields Medal, in August 1944. As told in his CMJ interview, Ahlfors was permitted to take only 10 crowns out of the country, which did not cover the train fare from Stockholm on the east coast of Sweden to Kungsbacka near Gothenburg on the west coast of the country. He left his Fields Medal at a pawnshop for cash. According to Vanessa, the mathematician Arne Borling offered her father a position at the Uppsala Institute near Stockholm, and when he started getting his salary from Uppsala, he was able to take the pawned Fields Medal back. Ahlfors wrote, "I am forever indebted to Arne Borling, who showed what true friendship can be." The Ahlfors family now faced the problem of getting from Sweden to Switzerland. When Finland signed an armistice with the USSR to end the Continuation War, one of the conditions was to expel German forces from its territory. So in 1944, Finland was at war with Germany and simultaneously, at least on paper, with the Allied nations, including the United Kingdom. The British were willing to let the family pass through the UK if an opportunity arose. Ahlfors recalled that the Swedes had organized some semi-regular stratospheric flights on moonless nights from Stockholm to Prestwick, Scotland. From Vanessa's description, they had to wait for the phone to ring so that they could know when to get on the plane. It was kept a secret. While the family was waiting in Sweden, a tragedy happened. The young Christopher died in an accident. It was understandably a very painful and traumatic experience for the Ahlfors family, particularly for the mother. Ahlfors's account of their departure from Sweden is the following.
One day in March 1945, we were told to be ready to leave Sweden, weather permitting. It is difficult to forget that flight. The plane was reconditioned Flying Fortress, with perhaps a dozen passengers. It was not pressurized, and breathing was accomplished by individual oxygen masks. Swim vests were worn by all. Our children, ages 5 and 6, were quite capable of understanding the implications of danger.
According to Vanessa, she was not sure if her oxygen mask fit properly and didn't think it was working. But she was fine when they landed in Scotland. A train ride took the family from Glasgow to London. Ahlfors recalled the continuing trip in his CMJ interview.
After getting to England finally, we then had to cross the English Channel to France. But waiting for the boat train took a long time. We would take everything to the train station, where we sat on the train waiting for the boat. At last, they would come and tell us that there was no boat that night, and we would go back to the hotel. This was repeated perhaps 10 times, until finally, one day the boat came and the train truly left. This was in early 1945. London, of course, was being bombed by the V-2s, and the children were very scared.
Vanessa said that the German bombers and the V-2 rockets were coming in during the day at any time, and they could hear the big explosions. But the father explained to the two girls that it was only the tires on the double-decker buses that were exploding, so as to pacify them. Then they proceeded to Paris, and from there took a train to Zurich. She remembered that they arrived in a hotel in Zurich right before Easter. Her father had hidden a Swiss watch in a chandelier in the hotel, which was the Easter gift for Erna. Although Ahlfors said the Swiss legation was unforgettably helpful in securing lodgings in a luxury hotel when they were in Paris, which Vanessa identified as George Sunk. Ahlfors also said he cannot honestly say that he was happy in Zurich. The post-war era was not a good time for a stranger to take root in Switzerland. Vanessa didn't think the country was very welcoming to foreigners. From her perspective, people were very stingy. They had all saved up coal, but the apartment the Ahlfors family stayed in was not adequately heated because they didn't know the local practice. The youngest daughter of the Ahlforses, Caroline, was born in Zurich in November 1945. They put her in an orphanage, and she stayed there for 3 or 4 months until it became a little warmer. Vanessa remembered that when Caroline came back from the orphanage, all of a sudden there was a big baby instead of the little one that they had seen. In 1946, Ahlfors accepted a professorship at Harvard University and stayed there until his retirement in 1977. When Vanessa was in 5th grade, around 1950, the family moved to Winchester, Massachusetts, a suburb of Boston. It was a spacious house, and Ahlfors had a home office. Based on Vanessa's memory, he would disappear and go to his office every night after dinner. Ahlfors was at the time writing the textbook Complex Analysis, which became tremendously popular after its publication. Ahlfors kept his Fields Medal, along with many other medals, in his desk drawer. Occasionally, he would open the drawer and show the girls all the medals. Some of them were really big, and the Fields Medal was a smaller one. Ahlfors told his daughters that, "This is the one that's worth a lot of money because it's pure gold, and others were not." Vanessa remembered going through the medals in the drawer, and she felt elated. In the CMJ interview, the daughter said, "Growing up, we always were in awe of what Father did. We had no idea what it was. We still don't know. He tells us he's a philosopher." During our interview, Vanessa reiterated her feeling of her father being more a philosopher than a mathematician. He never explained his math. When Vanessa was in high school and had math homework, she just went into his office. Ahlfors would say, "This is how you do it, da 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 da," and he would do it. Then I had my homework done. He didn't try to teach it to me. He just did the whole, it was just easier to get it done. After finishing complex analysis, Ahlfors continued to work all the time, except Sundays. He made everyone go to church. His family was Lutheran, like everybody else in Finland, but he had converted to Catholicism and very much believed in that. He was very taken about the readings of Thomas Aquinas when he was around 18 or 19 years old, and he adhered to it. The girls were reluctant. Finally, when Vanessa was in college, New York University, and she was visiting her parents in Massachusetts, an Irish priest in Boston said every Catholic is obligated to vote for John Kennedy. Ahlfors took great offense at that, and they walked out of the church and never returned. At the end, when he died, he was not at all Catholic. Ahlfors was a great pianist. Vanessa said her father and all the mathematicians that they knew at Harvard had a grand piano, and they all played it. Ahlfors would play in the afternoon or in the evening, especially on Sundays. He loved Bach and played all of his music. He also enjoyed playing Beethoven and Mozart, and towards the end of his life, Schubert became his favorite composer. Ahlfors passed away in 1996, and his wife Erna in 2001. Vanessa Gruen and her sister Caroline Morris inherited the Fields Medal. Cynthia departed already. They were passing it around from one coffee table to the other, between Manhattan and Chatham in upstate New York. Eventually, they decided to donate the first Fields Medal, won by Lars Ahlfors, to the University of Helsinki. This is the quote from Vanessa.
We were still in Chelsea in New York, a neighborhood in Manhattan. We were on 7th Avenue, and my sister was living up in the Chatham area in New York. And it was just that we would switch the Fields Medal back and forth, and we decided that was just ridiculous, that we should just do something with it and give it something where it would have some meaning. And we thought that since he had done all his mathematics and all this early work, and leading up to the Fields Medal, it was all done in Helsinki. It wasn't done at Harvard, and we didn't want to give it to Harvard because they have so much stuff anyway. That would be more meaningful to give it to the university in Helsinki, where he had learned all this mathematics and where he was when he was in Finland when he won the Fields Medal. So we thought that was appropriate.
In 2004, Vanessa and Caroline traveled to Finland to give Ahlfors his Fields Medal to the mathematics department at the University of Helsinki. 6 decades after the medal's audacious exit from Finland, it had come full circle. At the suggestion of Olli Lehto, Ahlfors' longtime colleague and friend, the original medal was placed in the Helsinki University Museum, and a replica was made for the mathematics department and is in a glass display case outside the auditorium named after Lars Ahlfors. In 2012, Ahlfors' youngest daughter, Caroline, contacted LaGuardia's mathematics department about donating her late father's books. She was pleased to learn that the books have been well appreciated by the math faculty, much better than sitting on her shelf. She wrote using her husband, Frank Morris's email address. Later, we learned that the couple co-directed Frank Film, which won the 1974 Academy Award for Best Animated Short Film. But only Frank was recognized. Caroline was overlooked. Nevertheless, Ahlfors, with his fame as a Fields medalist and the author of the highly regarded complex analysis, made this comment.
Now I have finally become famous. I am the father-in-law of an Oscar winner.
Postscript. After interviewing Vanessa on June 11, 2025, I felt so inspired, and I spent the following days fervently writing the story about Ahlfors' fascinating family. On Father's Day, June 15th, I shared the manuscript with Vanessa and expressed my admiration for her beautiful relationship with Dr. Ahlfors. She was touched. I submitted the article to Archive, the preprint server managed by Cornell University, and reached out to mathematicians in Helsinki to request images of the Fields Medal. Professor Tuomas Heitinen, former head of the Department of Mathematics and Statistics, had been informed by his predecessor that the medal was stored in a safe in the building's basement. However, when they entered the code found in an envelope, it didn't work. After replacing the batteries, the safe remained locked. Eventually, an electrician managed to open the safe, only to find it empty. Before calling the police, Professor Heitinen's colleagues suggested checking with the university museum. Rita-Leena Inki, the department's science communicator, contacted the museum and immediately confirmed that the medal was in their possession. Wanting to verify this firsthand, Professor Heitinen and Miss Inki traveled to the museum's conservation facilities in Vantaa, about 20 kilometers from central Helsinki. There, the curator retrieved the medal from storage and handed it to Professor Heitinen, while Ms. Inki took several pictures. For their full account and photographs of the original Fields Medal, see Inky's article, A Nugget of Gold in Hakila Vanta.